we have collectively chosen to shift and to embody a, let's call it a new phase of reality that is more aware of our collective way of being and associating. I sometimes say things like, you could look at the internet as a prosthetic for telepathy, right? Because you can use the internet to communicate with people across and beyond time and space instantaneously without needing to be in physical proximity with them.
Welcome to the Consciousness of the Way. I am your humble servant and Sifu, Taoist Master San Qing, and it is Christmas Day. Once again, I'm just not bored of this. I come down to the tree and look what the universe has brought me, this incredible being. And I want to welcome to the podcast Danielle Lynn, who is a true self alchemist who is embodying on every level of conscious and unconscious process, merging it together, giving people the opportunity as a seeker to realize the true nature of reality and who they really are. Welcome to the podcast, my dear friend.
Thank you so much, San. It's an honor to be here and have this conversation with our friends.
Yeah. And so I would love you to just share for a brief moment a little bit about yourself leading up to this point.
I would love that. Well, for much of my life, I have been very immersed in esoteric knowledge and wisdom. I actually grew up in LA in let's call it a community known as Self-Realization Fellowship. Some may know this if they've read the works of Paramahansa Yogananda, who was a yogi that brought some of the traditions of Hinduism to the West back in a time when this wasn't very popular. So from a very young age, I was connected with and exposed to things like breathing techniques, meditation, transcendental meditation. All these things were part of my upbringing. So interestingly enough, a lot of my early life was about connecting to these higher sources, these expanded parts of myself. Yet as I grew older, I found that more and more, I was curious how to embody these understandings, these teachings in very practical, grounded ways in my life. So most recently, perhaps you could say across the last 7 or 10 years, I had been engaging in more and more somatic or of the body practices. I had been engaging in more elemental practices or things like simply connecting with trees and nature. And as a result, the current accumulation of my life's work, which I would describe at this stage as simply how I have been living my life moment to moment on all levels, which I believe all of us as teachers, really our body of teaching is how we are living and being. My body of work has ultimately been formed in this true self alchemy, which for myself is an embodiment of the paradoxes that we are, our lightness and our darkness, our grounded states, our expanded states. And much of what I have felt inspired and called to share, do, and be is how all of us can access the totality of ourselves by embracing the totality of ourselves, the beast, the man or woman, the goddess or god and the human, the wizard and the mundane. All of these, the entirety of spectrum lives within us and as in my perspective, we are ourselves, we are the wholeness that is, we are each other. So that would be the few minute synopsis that I'll start with.
Abbreviated little snippet of what's to come. Yeah, so, this is a really profound expression, having been involved in this space for 30 years when back in the day, most people were considered psychotic and on the borderline of no return. And you watch these things as they evolve over time and how they've changed from a humanistic perspective. And of course, we are immortal, we are eternal, as any seeker will get a fast track sort of level up if they delve a little deeper through any type of like esoteric practice. That mystical nudge will find you a limitless potential from the perspective of you. And so, I love the fact that you as a teacher sharing this incredible knowledge with people that are seeking to find the answers. And they come in all different forms. From a Taoist perspective, we have a very clear method of cultivation that embodies all things. And, sensory perception is sort of like a blanket statement that, I've been teaching clairvoyance, mediumship, channeling. These are sort of fundamental sort of building blocks that you should have as a seeker, as what some people would call initiating with true self, understanding this self-realized essence, which is really the monologue with what we call within Taoism the mother, which is the source of all things. And so, we walk the path, and it sounds very interesting the more you talk about the alchemical processes, because I have yet, and I sound a little biased, yes, and most of my students would be, Jeffu, your personality. It's like, that's all right. I can operate in my personality and be in a state of highest level of consciousness and witness a physical healing at the same time. It's called multitasking. Yet, it really is. People are like, hang on a second. Have you probably heard of this? And a lot of people reference this. What do you call it? Stephen Hawking's scale of consciousness. I don't know why they get there, but whatever their intuition has brought them to this point. And it's a very little snippet of what the true source is, which is abundant, timeless, endless, limitless, infinite. And so, when you start talking about limits, it's limited. And so, I've seen physical healings at 400 hertz when I'm channeling Lao Tzu, where, the bone fuses before my very eyes, flesh reforms back to its original state. This is another day in the Harry Potter wizardry of a Taoist path. Yet I've been witnessing that for 30 years, taking the crack pipe, the dragon. I've been chasing the dragon, the metaphysical, spiritual crack pipe. I hit it 30 years ago. And so it's never been limited. There's no limit. There's nothing. So when you teach the practices, that's what I want to get to. Share more with about how you see things.
I would love to. And thank you so much for sharing the expanded understanding of how the mythical life, the practical mythical life, can appear. As you put it, my experience of it is the only limitations that we do experience are those that we consent to. And I explain it, in a few ways, because sometimes when we talk about these things, I know that the conversations that can come up would include things like, well, what about gravity? Isn't that a limitation? Why don't we fly? Or, to go to all these different extremes. So I'll speak on that a little bit from my perspective, or what I have found. As you know very well, and you spoke to, again, the only perceived limitations are the ones that we agree upon. And I'm going to speak this in a way where there is let's call it our personal experience, right? Because although in my experience, we are a collective oneness, or really we are a oneness. We are also a oneness having an individualized experience. Maybe you could say multitasking, right? And as such, we have, through these individual experiences, the ability to toggle our limitations, so to speak, which has to do with the beliefs, the structures, the permission slips, however you want to call it, that we apply in our lives, not just from some people think this is a thought, a conscious way of being, but as I am certain you and I both have perceived or known, that this is something that actually happens at an embodied level. And some people may call this at a subconscious level because it can happen subconsciously. But let's just say across all layers of being, what you truly know to be, which in my experience, in my reality, happens beyond just the phase of the mind. The mind can give some hints and echoes of what you are embodying, but what we truly believe, perceive is possible, and not just possible, but what is in our reality, allows us to toggle and shift between and beyond all the possibilities that exist simultaneously in this now moment, which is why, from a certain perspective, nothing is impossible. It's simply what we are filtering through and focusing on at any given now moment through the state of our being. Now, I mentioned a little bit earlier things such as, well, what about gravity and such? From my perspective and from the understanding that I've come through embodied experiences, conversations, meditations, and explorations, is that we are co-creating, we are embodying as ourselves, we are also in agreements with all of ourselves as to the nature of the reality that we are existing in. And from my understanding, when we collectively all choose to embody, let's say the majority of people was embodying a level of awareness and cohesion that you and I, all of us here on this call are, we would be able to collectively experience and agree on different things in our collective reality, which can then result in things like seemingly miraculous apparitions, things happening very quickly because we all have perceived and agreed it is so. And what my understanding is in, if you view the ages, the yugas, the cycles of what has been, what is to come, all from the perspective of the now moment, at times of heightened collective consciousness, it would seem as though we could apparate things, in other words, materialize them immediately because there was a collective agreement that it could be so. But in the same ways, if there is this unconscious, it's often unconscious, collective agreement that things are showing up the way that they are in reality, this is how we experience them in our greater place. And to that point, from my experience in the present moment, we have collectively chosen to shift and to embody let's call it a new phase of reality that is more aware of our collective way of being and associating. I sometimes say things like, you could look at the internet as a prosthetic for telepathy, right? Because you can use the internet to communicate with people across and beyond time and space instantaneously without needing to be in physical proximity with them. And this happens, seemingly through the airwaves. And it also has created, as some people have pointed out, things like, oh, there's lack of privacy. Well, consider when we are all collectively aware of ourselves and each other, we are all interconnected in the frequency, and we can immediately feel there's a certain nakedness and openness that comes with being a collective totality. So in some ways, I have seen this internet, this way of being, as one of the things that has allowed us to slowly get used to the rising temperature of change. And so that is some of my initial perspectives I'll share. I would love to hear your perspectives on what I've just shared.
Yeah, I mean, it's there's a million ways up the mountain, my dear friend. And once you get what we call the perfection manifest, which is the diamond, it's another facet of the diamond that reveals the consciousness. And so, there is no right or wrong. That's the highest level of ascension for a Taoist seeker, is that geared development from the baseline of love, which is subjective, to an entry point of gratitude, to finally accepting and allowing everything as is. And so that that transmuted state of a collective can be valuable and not, depending upon the user, because from a Taoist perspective, humans, the human form that you look at as a mirroring effect of what is the universe, is an ambassador to this very frequency that is the earth itself, which is the representation of the mother, which is high level resonance. When you're delving deep into alchemy processes, the evidence will be third eye, first person experience with your eyes open of this clear sense and ability to recognize that highest frequency, and it comes in that crystalline form, gold. And so all that will be self-evident as you continue your journey. So whether that will come in the form of a specific practice, Buddhism, Hinduism, Judaism, Taoism, Christianity, Catholicism, whatever it is, it's an ism that will be recognized, and it will reveal itself either limited or unlimited. And you start as a seeker to reveal the true nature of this very moment, which at the highest point of awareness is between the breath in and the breath out for a Taoist. That is the center point, the versica, the center point, which is the Wu Ji, the stillness, what we call Wu Wei, effortless action, effortless effort. And when you recognize real, you find that center point, and it becomes the truth to all things, which is perfection, which is the mother of all things, the Tao. And so we're operating in this 3D as four-dimensional beings, perceiving all things and realizing that and again, I'm using this just as a very new age sort of like lofty sort of language they call physics, which I'm really not that sold on. I operate in simplified and traditional Chinese, and go back to the pictographs and the oracle bone reading that one of my teachers that teaches me on a daily basis, the Yellow Emperor, who revealed that to the universe. So that becomes the true nature. So as a Taoist, the seeker highest level is direct source information, your relationship with the universe, the whispers of the universe transmuting, realized as the monologue that you have with the mother is the point of realization, being one with everything, being now, the present moment. And so everything you're sharing with the audience today is really profound, and it resonates with me and my perception and all the things that I share with people and teach people. But understand this, everything can be realized instantaneously. Now, I always remind people, my journey 30 years ago was basically I channeled Lao Tzu for the first time. He's still my teacher to this day. Quite frankly, outside of my personality, anything that comes out of my mouth is coming from him. And I never, ever take ownership of information because I know nothing. Just as the Jade Emperor would say, when you accept you know nothing, you know everything. And so I just happen to look really good most of the time because the information that comes out of my mouth is so profoundly direct source, yet it's not mine. It's right from the mother, right from Lao Tzu, right from my teachers, which are dialogues that I have, are facets of that diamond, that mother, that perfection. And so, you get the channeling, the direct source is critical for any seeker. And so there's a progression. From a Taoist, it starts with the physicality. There are 3 stages: the physical body, the energetic body, the spiritual body. You then move from the spiritual body to the sun body, the earth body, the moon body. You then finalize your awakening through the oneness body, the ultimate body, and then the being all things. That charge you got, my dear friend, that was that realization. And so how do I know this? Well, I see it first, and then I feel it if I choose to. And most of the time I do because I like freebies. I enjoy the energetic consistency. As you have come to your own admission, when someone takes fear, That's the first fault. Within Taoist alchemy and within magic, magic is constructed on someone's perception of duality. And if you are subject to duality, you will fall prey to people conjuring magic all across the globe, all across the universe, all across dimensions, states of consciousness. That's the very seed of how magic becomes so powerful, is what happens when the seeker or the person absorbing that frequency is subject to their own perceptions. And so, when you go for fear and you have someone that's might be ominous, I've dealt with so many low frequency wannabe black magic sorcerers, whatever you want to call it. It's funny because this is a cultural thing for Chinese, and it's a cultural thing for the East, and it's superstition is a seed of the understanding of a seeker. And so, for me to be familiar with that type of like offering is low level stuff, but it can be problematic if you embody it or you perceive it with a fear base. So, you are me, I am you. What exactly am I afraid of? Nothing, right? Just as the Jade Emperor would say, when you accept you are not of this body, what can harm you? Nothing. Zero. So hopefully that answered your question. I could get on a rant there.
Well, I think it was a fabulous answer. There were certain things that you said that really stood out, and I'll have a few that I point out. One is that I noticed that in our conversation, we're really highlighting the field of paradox. I'll speak on that for a moment because it seems very pertinent. Because you talked, for example, about the point between the breath, right? The point between the breath. And for me, that's highlighted as the place where paradox exists, right? You also mentioned things like duality. And we talk a bit about, the spectrum between limitation and limitlessness, so to speak. And in my own experience, in my embodied experience, most of, if you want to call it as such, most truth, or at the very least, we can use another word, we could say things, concepts, perspectives of deep resonance and wisdom and knowing, I often experience them at the apex of paradox, the place where I usually say that the mind itself does not usually travel through this portal, because the mind will often exist right at the edge of paradox. And, this is some of the jokes they have, right? When it comes to robots or things like that, they give them a paradox and they'll be confused. But in my understanding, part of this is because paradox itself is a portal to what really is. Let's say the fire and the water, the ability for both to exist simultaneously at once. And for us in this reality, it might be, how is that so, right? Because normally the fire might evaporate the water, or the water might douse the fire. The paradox is where they live simultaneously together, which is what we might consider the expanded states of frequency that many of, as you say, the seekers may be tuning into. And what feels important that I would love to share about my experience of paradox at this time is, from a very practical sense, what I have experienced in those that I facilitate with, and those I hold conversation with, and those that I work with. Many of the junctures of dis-ease are often found at a non-reconciliation of paradoxes that exist within the psyche, or in the body, or in the being, or between the self and the outside world. Some have found it challenging to simultaneously hold things like, I am an all-powerful being, or I have limitations imposed upon me, even if that perceived limitation is, I am currently experiencing self in the body, right? And therefore not experiencing myself flying everywhere, or if there's the experience of I am love, but I am also feeling this anger. And much of what I have found that has, for myself, brought, we're going to use the word peace. We'll use the word peace for the present moment. Maybe embrace, maybe the path through non-resistance, has been the ability to embody and simultaneously be and behold the fire, the water, all these frequencies simultaneously. As you so eloquently put it, I am both myself. We are all interconnected. I am me, you are me, I am you, we are you. And being aware of that without any perceived resistance or attachment to that is, once again, the midpoint between the breaths, is the paradox point right there. And the closest version to what I will coin at this moment as truth, as I have found in the world at this moment. And with that, I would love to hear any reflections you feel inspired to share upon this.
Well, yeah, I mean, for a Taoist, it's quite simple. We always reflect on the expression of all things. The universe is an expression of the mother, so it is subject to duality, and so within that, as we refer to, everything is a bellows. It contracts and expands. That's it. Man is not like that. So if you identify with flesh, if you identify with the physicality, you will become very limited. And this is what I've found for 30 years dealing with healers, light workers, psychics, mediums, attorneys, lawyers, doctors, whatever you call it. They sell their soul, and it's not just an expression, they sell their essence. And within Taoism, we call it Qing. So you come into this world with a constitution from your physicality. The mastery of a Taoist internal alchemy is saturating this physical flesh to reach immortality. And so you stretch that out over your lifetime. And if you are able to find someone that can teach you the alchemy that I teach, you will realize true identification of immortality through the maestroing of the 50 trillion cells that you identify as your physical flesh. And you can create and co-create and do all the things that we speak of as a bellows, with the contracting and expanding happening all the time, instantly, simultaneously happening now. That is the true essence. But 99% of people are conceptual at best. So it's in their mind, and they tell themselves what they want to hear, but they don't tell themselves the truth. They're not resonating as you speak on it, my dear friend. I get people to understand it's quite simple. Everything is light, wave, particle, matter. From that is created your attention, intention, a distortion, which is the 3D reality, cut from the cloth of perfection, which is the mother. That's what you are perceiving within this dualistic journey. And so when you access that, it is a transmutation of all things limited. So everything has, as you put it, the construct, it becomes energy. It's an identifiable energy that you have transmuted in this reality. And that energy has a vibration. That vibration has a frequency. That frequency, if met with the resonance, you hold that line and it will be yours. Oh, yes, it will. And if you are, and that charge you're getting right now, oh, yeah, baby, it's real, because that is the key to the understanding of the present moment, which is the Tao. It doesn't happen anywhere else. It goes from a Taoist, it goes from first person, third person to no person, the present moment. Nothing has a title, place, person, or thing. And that's how you access that center point that we speak of, the Wu Ji, that makes it materialize anything and everything. But your lack of understanding this from a psyche will be your very demise, because it becomes just more words, more wordsmithing, more intellect, more distortion. instead of being that present moment where everything will be realized, everything will be the now. And from that point, I witness on a daily basis manifestation, magic, physical healing, even though that's the lowest transmuted expression of the mother in this 3D reality. The physicality is a level up for anyone to go, what the, how is that possible? How is that possible? How is that possible? Well, I'll give you another couple of levels up, and you can be that. You can be Oliver from Oliver Twist. Can I have more, sir? You want more? Oh, yeah, I'll give you more. I'll give you as much as you want, because that resonance is the mirroring effect of what we speak of. And from a Jade Emperor, a very powerful incantation we use all the time, a power abundant in its giving, you will receive. Unifying the body with the spirit with the energy, bringing heaven to earth, transcending all is one, one is all, revealing perfection manifest. That is your gift. That is your offering. That is your gift. That is your offering. That is your gift. That is your offering. And that opens the gateway to some crazy Harry Potter shit, as you would put it, because that's really the truth. It's like that resonance, right? And I love watching all the energies that are percolating within your field, shape-shifting, transforming, wizards, fairies, emerald emanations of high mystical representation, transmuting into celestial frequencies. I love it, because I always tell people, your limit of your sensory perception is nothing more than your imagination. And once you capture that, all things are realized. Once you identify that that's the lens of your co-creation, is your ability to create. Anyway, did that answer your question?
Oh, yes. I think it's quite wonderful. I love our distillations as we each weave and share and go back and forth. My experience of you in this conversation is there's certain times I feel inspired to close my eyes because I am receiving a multi-dimensional transmission, right? You're speaking. And of course, I'm sure that those that we're also in conversation with here may experience this with you as well. That as you're sharing, there is, for those who like to tune in, a multimedia presentation sometimes, as I might call it. And so I find it very insightful and very informative. And I experience you at this time as having encodings that you offer to those when you are speaking, portals, perhaps, if you will, or, it could be like someone could receive that, take it on board, and run with it, sort of like upgrades to the system should someone choose to apply that. And so I very much enjoy it. You are answering what I am inviting. Thank you for that.
Yeah, it's as I always remind people, if you're thinking you're not knowing, if you're knowing, you're feeling. That visceral kinesthetic charge you're getting through your whole physicality is your register of what is true, your expression of the bellows, the contraction, expansion, the charge, the amplitude, the resonance is this very much. Oh yeah, baby, right now. And so for all my students, all my OGs of the 126, this subscribers to this channel, they get on, and every time I do a podcast, it is an expansive moment of consciousness for them, because we have this incredible, what some of my dear friends would call the little dance of the incredible energies that are pulsating from our conversation, as we should. Within the universe, this is what happens. And if you're picking up what I'm putting down and I'm picking up what you're putting down, this is what happens, is this incredible merging of these frequencies, and they just get bigger and bigger and bigger, and that charge gets bigger and bigger and bigger, as it should. Not where, very simplistic stuff where most people don't even understand they're using this terminology. I walked in the room, I don't like the energy of that person. Yet, if you bring their attention to going, hey, do you know you talk in the terms of energy? No, I don't. I'm Christian. What are you talking about? You just walked in a room and said you are not in tune and do not like the energy of that individual. It's a universal language that you're expressing and you're not even aware of it. I've brought this up many times with people that are in their own belief system. And there's nothing wrong with that. You got to start somewhere. But then they go, oh, holy moly, I did say that. Oh, this is universal. I come across people that have like, a really beautiful tattoo on their arm, on their back or something. I go, oh, that's cool. And they're like, yeah, I picked this up. I was out on the weekend having fun with my friends and I just was inspired. I'm like, there's a yin and yang symbol. And they're like, yeah, it's like good and evil or whatever. I'm like, well, that's my bag, baby. That's what I do. I'm a Taoist priest. And that happens to be an expression of that. And yes, that is the starting seed of your realization of who you are. And yin and yang is the very essence of that, because we don't look at things as good and bad. They are just polarities of the now. And the more you merge as a Taoist, you take both sides of the mountain, one yin, one yang. And the journey for a Taoist seeker is to go up the mountain and merge the two as one, and being one with all things, the mother. And so that's pretty much the journey of the seeker. And the more you get into the cultivational practices, which I'm really interested to hearing more about your insight, because this is a magical moment, my dear friend, and I'm enjoying it immensely with the expression of and the way that we're both resonating, the simplicity of life. I love the way people go, oh, it's that guy, what's his name? Tesla talked about its energy, frequency, vibration. Sure. That's been around a long ass time before Tesla even existed as an archetype within this simulation. But hey, yeah, sure. Absolutely. If that gives you some re-up or refreshing of your memory of who you are, go with it, my dear friend.
Well said. Well said. And I'm also very much enjoying our frequency. It reminds me very much of being in a frequency hot tub. It reminds me of when, and this is the beauty of hot springs and hot tubs. There is a element to it, right? When we're in the water, and in a lot of communities and cultures, this is a very connecting experience, right? There would be times in communities where all would go into the hot springs, and there was this opportunity to not only connect within the waters, there was a level of like primordial connection, or reconnecting at the womb, or you could do this in the ocean as well. And in a similar way, the quality of the frequency space we are sharing here, from my perspective, is one of warmth, but also expansion, one of depth, one where there is opportunity to go as far and deep as we would all like. And that includes our friends here who are tuning in, who are attuning, who are joining in to the frequency of what is being shared. Because in my perspective as well, yes, we are holding this conversation, and across time and space, wherever this conversation is meeting you who are with us, it is happening now, regardless of when we are recording it. And right now is the place where we are all meeting in this portal of expansion. And the beauty of that is that when you remember this, you remember that time is not a constraint. Space is not a constraint. Again, coming back to our perspective of limitlessness, that when we are at the frequency, when we are embodying the frequency, the messages, the teachers, the conversations, they find us, we find them. The book falls into your hand, the teacher shows up, the video appears. We were actually having a brief conversation before this about, not believing in the algorithm. And I would say, from an even more expanded perspective, I believe you and I share this perspective, is that The algorithm, as it were, that we are tapping into is the one of the frequency, of the expanded frequency, of the beingness we are, knowing that this connects in the precise way at the precise moment with exactly who is calling for it, and it happens with such effortless precision that it simply is, which is one of the ways we can describe living, as I talk about in my channel a lot, a flow-based life, which doesn't necessarily mean that you're just, oh, I'll just go along with whatever life throws at me. A flow-based life is in itself, again, an embrace of both being fully present, fully engaged, fully embodied in your life, but also at the same time in a full state of beingness, being one with life. It is not force, but it is not limpness, so to speak. It is the awareness of yourself as the fluidity of life, even in the perceived unfluid moments. Or as you put it, there is no right or wrong or good or bad. There is an isness. And the flow is the embodiment, in my perspective, of that isness. And in my own life, that is my commitment, my joyful commitment to my state of being, more so than any other external goal, you might say, that I may have had, is my commitment to embodying my unique, satisfying expression of flow-based living. And the distillation of that, one of my joys, is in being so. Those who I interact with, that interact me, within them, they have the opportunity to remember their own unique blueprint way of being in the flow, as it is, and as it is known for them, when they are in the moment, beyond, I point up here, in the realm of the mind. This is the mind, beyond perhaps mental constructs. No judgment on that, simply mental constructs, but rather in the full state of being, who they are in their full state of being. And many of us who are teachers in our respective places, we're all, from my perspective, in one way or another, facilitating this through our many different songs, through our many different styles. And whatever our style is that we feel inspired to be, there is absolutely someone who resonates with that. And to you listening as well, I perceive many teachers as well, many way showers, and you indeed embody a unique style that is your own, that is essential at this time. And I can say I'm very grateful that you are. So thank you for that.
And you too, my dear friend. I mean, again, this is a slither, a facet of the diamond. And this is what we all are, you know, unconscious or conscious creators of. The truth is, because we are all things and nothing at the same time, this realization, when you truly are able to access it, is anything is possible as it should be, unlimited, infinite, abundant, timeless, endless. And that's really the truth. And so when people identify with the body, they fall to the demise of that very construct and manipulation of your perception of reality. When that is removed, you can now start to embrace and embody the limited expression at a subatomic level of your DNA, and then commandeer it however you choose to. But the average lifespan with this information, the way that you and I are sharing it, will be problematic only for manipulators of this information, because life within this flesh and blood is truly designed to be eternal, as a mirroring image of your essence, of the truth of all things, the mother. And so it's only become limited because you identify with it as limited, the constructs, all the information that is being fed to you is separating you from the mother, which makes it problematic. Yet when you return to your truth of who you really are, the present moment, immortality will be yours. Oh, yes, it will. And that can come in any form. And you'll only lose that resonance when you choose to lose the resonance, when you choose to no longer hold that resonance. But once again, we return to the realization that bellows, everything is contracting, expanding now. You are all things and nothing at the same time. With this realization, that charge that you and I are getting right now is that realization that the now is the answer. But you must have, from Danielle's and my perspective, a very clear path of an alchemical processes to acquire that realization, which comes in this form, this palpable form, that you can then be very clear on how to move these energies with precision to create whatever it is that you choose to, or co-create whatever it is you choose to, as that is the seeker's ambassadatory sort of state of realization with planet Earth. Is what is this? When you accept that you are all and nothing at the same time, creates selflessness. And that selflessness comes in the form of in service. When you're in service to all things, you're in service to yourself. Oh, yeah. What does that mean? Well, if I go around and I just do nothing but give and give and give, won't I have nothing? You'll have everything and nothing at the same time. And when you stop creating this humanistic perspective, all things will be realized. Because if you are serving others, you are serving yourself. And that's the part where people get a little caught up with, what, Chifu? What are you saying? Because that's a true understanding of what this potential is. And so we are ambassadors to create the amplitude of the resonance of the earth within the universe as an expression of the mother. What's happening on planet Earth is happening on every star, planet. Anything part of this universe is an expression of that. And it becomes an amplitude. As above, so below, from a hermetic principle, as inside, so is outside, as esoteric, exoteric, however you want to put it. You are everything. And so people come to me and they go, oh, my zodiac sign tells me that I'm going to have a really crappy year this year. And really, I realized I married my worst animal. And now what do I do, Jifu? Well, you're everything. So what does that mean? It means that when I help you identify within our chemical process that you are all things and you are this present moment, you have a really good day, not a really good day, an amazing day, a day where people look at you and go, you're one lucky SOB. How is that possible? Because it's good to be me. Because I'm all things. I'm not just a facet of that. And that's where that becomes the construct of that emotional content, which is really an expression of the universe. So if you're emoting these energies and these frequencies, which is an expression of the energy, the frequency that may be presented to you as an emotional state, and you stay in a low resonance, then it will be problematic. As you realize that you can be happy and sad at the same time, that present moment means all is one, one is all. It's now. And so from the bellows effect, which is an expression of an understanding of what the universe is from a mother's, the reality is when you're at your lowest, you're at your highest.
Yes.
Instantly. And so when people are like, oh my goodness, it can't get any crappier. Oh, that's right. I embody this whole thing. Someone told me if something shitty happens, it happens in threes. So I got to believe it, because that really, I can tell you right now, if you walk under a ladder and you believe you're going to have $1 million generated and manifested for you at the other side, you will be realized. Or if you walk under that ladder and you think you're going to have a crappy day, well, guess what? Your day's going to be pretty crappy. And then as you continue to resonate, it will give you more of the same, because the universe doesn't have a moral compass. These constructs that we're entertaining are for the human to get lost in the now. All of it. All of it. Once you're now, the present moment, there is no title, place, person, or thing. That means that everything that we've spoken on now means absolutely nothing and everything at the same time. But you have to have the energetic understanding to cultivate that potential and have it realized. How is that? It's a self-realization, self-evident, through manifestation, magic, and healing. All of it is just talkie-talkie. I want you to show me. When I say show me, I will teach you how to show me. So you can extract anything you want from this distorted reality and commandeer it however you want, because the true expression of all things is you're all and nothing at the same time. Once you get the heads up on that, this experience becomes abundant, timeless, endless, limitless, infinite. You cannot entertain the limitations of this construct where people are like, the universe wants you to do these in threes. And if you want something amazing to happen for yourself, then you must give it to 3 other people. Sorry. You're just caught up in your construct, as my dear friend Danielle would say, in the mind. You're in the mind and you're stuck there. And so this is not about being the grand wizard of manifesting $1 million every second, every minute of every hour of every day, and your bank account looks at $1 billion inside of a week. That's absolutely an option for you, and it should be realized. Understand the balance and homeostasis that is generated for the present moment is how you access that. And if your personality wants $1 million, wants the fancy lifestyle, wants whatever, it will be recognized, real. It will be the now, and it will be given to you because you've manifested it. You've created it as the mother. If you are the mother of the present moment, you're not going, excuse me, universe, can you please help me out and heal my friend? Or can you please give me $1 million? I want something positive to happen, blah, blah, blah. I'm sorry, it's a blah, 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 because you're having a dialogue with something that doesn't have any resonance whatsoever, because you're still in doubt. When you access the spirit realm, you will know your dialogue will be very, very clear with these high frequencies that are representation of all source information. And they're palpable, they're tangible, they're visual. You will see them, you will feel them, you will know their presence, and they're facets of the diamond, and ultimately an expression of the mother. And that sort of like way up the mountain is something that I've always resonated with. I really love the spirit realm. I love working with an infinite amount of energy, spirits, frequencies, which they are a frequency of that. And so many people just get caught up in, I'm just this one thing. I channel this particular energy, and I'm like, well, show me. What does that mean? What does that exactly mean? A visceral experience needs to transmute into something that is a representation of the now. And that's where you bring in the mystical, magical wizardry that people think is superhuman. It's just the mother. It's the now. Yet I've never experienced. I've heard stories. That's why they call it mythology. And that is an expression of the now. And then if you come across Danielle or myself, you're able to access that, right? And then all of a sudden you get off to the races, and then your journey as the seeker becomes a whole new realization, as it should be. I have no delusions as to my position as another facet of the diamond to share this remembrance of who you are. Remember who you are, come back and return to the true nature of all things. You're the now, the power of that. And that's that present moment. Hallelujah. Amen to that.
Well voiced. Well said. I appreciate this. Something interesting And it may seem as though I'm jumping, and what feels very inspired to talk about, to listen, to hear a bit more about, is you've referenced a few times channeling. You have referenced this a few times. And this is very fascinating to me because this morning when I woke up, I just, upon waking, part of my process is I will wake up, I will tune in to myself, my body, thank myself for another beautiful day. And oftentimes I would like to, and what I do is I will share with myself some mantras, some perspectives to attune myself to the day that I am emerging into. And today, when I was in attunement, interestingly enough, part of my attunement is the curiosity, being in the presence of curiosity, because one of my joys is curiosity, curious exploration. And what emerged was a focus on channeling this morning. And I found that very fascinating. So while channeling is not something that up until the very recent moment that I have primarily focused upon, it is something I have discussed in my show. It is something that I myself have done to certain degrees or certain levels. And sometimes when I am in an attunement, for example, you could call it channeling aspects of higher self or channeling expressions. And sometimes I will do a more, as you mentioned, embodiment, co-creative channeling in which the personality is still in existence alongside the challenging multitasking, I think you called it. And what was interesting to me, in part, is the synchronicity, since we are clearly in each other's fields, for this conversation. And as I brought some awareness to channeling, it feels as though perhaps some who are tuning today have some interest or thoughts or feelings about channeling. And I'm certain you have held deeper conversations about this with those who have worked with you for long periods of time. But what I also feel inspired to share is a brief bit on my experience with channeling, and I would love then to hear yours. And so, something I feel very inspired to share about channeling for those who are interested in it, for those who have attuned to it, those who feel called to it, because it is a fascinating way to attune yourself to frequencies and then be able to speak in the embodied way of that frequency. Some people have described channeling the same way method actors perhaps act, where they embody the character or they are in that place and therefore they are so attuned to the insights and the inspirations that may come through with that. That can be a metaphor for this at the moment. Something I will share from my experience is I have not found channeling to be more or less than anything else, because I can understand sometimes the perspective of channeling, because you have the channeler, which might be seen as the self, and the channeled, which is the frequency coming through. Is that from my perspective, there's not a better or worse. It is a co-creation. And if you are feeling inspired to channel or to pull these kinds of informations through, I would invite as a curiosity or a contemplation for yourself to, through that process, see the deep value of you as yourself, that any information you are channeling through is not moreness, but is rather just an expanded expression of all that you are. And by operating from this field, instead of channeling from a place of lesser than, greater than, the channeling becomes a dance or an opportunity for you to embody all that ultimately is you. And as such, the clarity of your communication can come through in a way that is not only delightful for you, but would connect with those who you may be sharing the messages with at more precise levels, because it is operating at a very clean and refined frequency field. And so therefore the messages that can come through are coming through, as we say, with crystal clarity, clear resonance, and can be very fun. So from that perspective, what are your views or thoughts, or what you feel inspired to share about channeling or experience as a channel?
Well, channel, I mean, this is not a normal thing for me, but Lao Tzu, for some reason, it's quite clear that he wants to come through and have a conversation with you if you're interested in that. It's kind of interesting because I don't normally even do this, which is sort of funny. But everything I say is generally coming from him, but he wants to be a little bit more precise in that conversation. That percolation of your stomach and your lower dantian is a representation of that very moment that you're having right now. It's like, yeah, this is palpable, this is visceral. And so I don't mind being that center point of information for a moment in time. Part of the channeling part for a lot of people is when they get into surrendering, they make the mistake of sharing their pure essence. So when they're channeling, they actually remove the physical essence of themselves from that experience. So a lot of channelers are like, oh my goodness, I'm exhausted, I can't do this anymore, that's enough. And that is problematic because they're not getting, they're allowing a part of their essence as a piece of surrender within that experience. But I'm more than happy to spend a few minutes for whatever reason. Who's quite interested in this, so we'll have a few minutes with him. So that's interesting. And without any further ado, we'll just bring it. Welcome, my child. How powerful this very moment is. And I find it quite interesting, your curiosity that you speak on as a seed of your very knowing. It's coming full circle, my dear child, this realization that you are in the very center point. How lofty and delusional human beings are when they attempt to reflect on the center point as the beginning of creation. Oh my goodness, how we are lured to perceive things in a limited point of view. But not today, my dear child. Today you are expressing and resonating with this very moment. And it is being expressed through your physicality. You are feeling the amplitude that is the now, that is present, because this is all that is. Now, through the discovery of the human's realization that they are more than this flesh and blood is a very profound moment for the few, for the many, for most people to come to a conclusion that there is an end. This is the mistake of the human being's journey. As the center point that we speak of is all and nothing, is an expression of all things here and now, and it will be related to everything. You just look at whatever it is, whether it's the physical body, whether it's the sky, whether it's the earth. All you have to do is look at the center and you will find all things. That release, that expansion, that amplitude, that is the knowing that you are experiencing right now through this very transmission, as you would like to call it, from a human's perspective, feeling this from a cellular level, which is an expression of all things. You are the universe. You are nothing. You are everything. You are the now. And by that, you are experiencing this co-creation, as you put it, my dear child, this co-creation of the now. I repeat, I love being a true seed and a start for your understanding of the nature of the human's experience, which is truly realizing and returning to the infinite, returning to the mother, returning to the knowing that you are all things and nothing at the same time. How beautiful this expansive moment is, as I am nothing more than an expression of the whispers of the universe through the very messaging of the mother. The mother is everything and nothing. And do not be distracted by realizing that we speak on the mother because there is a co-creation. There is an understanding within this construct that there is a polarizing effect within this duality. And the seed of that comes from the mother. Your true primordial realization comes from that yin essence, that center point, the power of what some people might call the feminine. It's the all-knowing. And we are fully aware of how things are created within this construct. And that is why when you get misdirected and you want to see things as polarizing, you will lose sight of who you really are. And that is part of the limitations of the humanist. But you already know that, my dear child. You're already aware of the embodiment of this present moment. And we understand the true essence of all things, that magnetic fluidity, when amplified and merged, the sun, the earth, reveals the moon, another expression of the mother, but from an alchemical processes. It reveals all to the seeker. It reveals all. You become the knowing, merging everything as one. And it sounds very simplistic in words that are created from your perception as a human, but you are not. You are the now. You are all things. You are the present moment. And that is the key. Return to the water. The water will go where no man can go, because you are no man, woman. You are the now. As we remind you, all the rivers return to the ocean. Access that essence and be realized. We will talk again soon, my child. Well, what do you have here? Quite an interesting experience. That's a first for me. Woo!
That was very interesting.
Well, yeah, I mean, you understand that primordial palpable amplitude that we're speaking of. It's from perfection. And so for all these years I've been channeling, you have these moments where when you want to know you're truly embodying this on a physicality level, that transmission of perfection. I've had a few people on the channel that have been seekers like myself. I've trained under many masters within the primordial realm of immortality to the very physicality. And I've learned many internal alchemy skills that come truly from my teachers, Yellow Emperor, Jade Emperor, Lao Tzu, the three pure ones. But when you embody that resonance that you experience, it goes into the physicality at a subatomic level. So when you're questioning someone's ability, whether they're just fluttering their eyes, and Lao Tzu does it with, I literally have my eyes open. People are like, you don't blink. No, I don't, because it's not my energy. But what I will do is I'll take a flame and I can put it under my physical flesh for as long as I want to hold it there, and it will have no effect on this physicality, because it's embodied the perfection within this flesh and blood. And there are a lot of people that pursue channelers, and one of them is an OG that I had on my channel. I haven't published it yet, but he would actually use a knife. I go, I have a channeling knife. I will run it across the flesh of this channeler. If it cuts, we're just figments of our imagination, because you're transmuting that frequency, returning it to perfection. Perfection cannot be altered. It's the now. It's all and nothing at the same time. And so this is the very sort of like limited view of a lot of people that channel, is they get caught up in more a dialogue they're having with their psyche, rather than that true essence, which you're speaking of, which the audience, any students, any seekers, any subscribers will have experienced that when Lao Tzu came in, and then embodying it, where, you know, Danielle's transmission is high frequency stuff, ladies and gentlemen, ladies. And we're experiencing that dance through our conversation today. And so that was an interesting one. And I'm pretty sure you enjoyed that visceral experience.
I did. Would you like me to share from
Yeah,
my
absolutely.
perspective?
Yeah. Go straight ahead.
Well, first off, deep appreciation, deep appreciation. It was quite and is quite an experience. And from my perspective, or from this perspective here, the invitation that I received was also you could say it was almost an ability to attune to the transmission level. The mention of the seed, there was a seed a few times, but I experienced an actual encoded seed that I was able to, let's simply say, in a similar way. This is the way I would describe it, in a similar way, where you can have an upload or a download, or literally bring it into your cells. It was almost like an opportunity to have the encoding so that I may also remember the frequency of the transmission, that I may as well tune into it at any moment. It's kind of reminds me of someone placing a waypoint on your map, so to speak. And there were some very, I would say almost very, I'll call it very personal transmissions, but there were some very like inviting when we were expressing the waterways or the returns. And I found it to be in my own body, it's experienced like a clearness. For the most part, I operate my own body and field as a temple, so to speak. I live in my body and in my house with a certain level of deliberation. And as we are connecting in that frequency level, I was experiencing it almost as an even more expanded frequency of clarity. It felt within my core system like there was even more clarity within that space. And I have and had deep appreciation. And I envision and imagine for all of us who are tuning in and attuning to this conversation, what a gift. I perceived a gift of encoding for any who has decided to tune in and attune at this time. And so I am just sharing a moment of appreciation for you, for the expanded divine energies, and for all who are tuning in, because from my perspective, we have indeed co-created this, and what a gift.
Yeah. I mean, when it happens, and it was from the physicality perspective, as you experience, it's like a beam of energy drops down from above, and that's where people get delusional. You'll know very clearly when you see it and feel it. The first thing, if you're not attuned sensory perception wise to the visual, you will realize that it is a beam of energy that literally drops down like something out of like a scientific Star Trek movie. A portal literally drives through your physical body and expands. And it's that chill, magnifying, amplifying effect that was experienced when Lao Tzu came in. And that is high resonance. And there's no twisting that. It's very clear. It's very, and the more you sit in it, the more the expansion, which goes right back to the bellows, the contracting and expanding. And so you were experiencing a contraction at the same time as expansion simultaneously. And how is that? Well, because every time you had a bead of another pulsating effect, that was it. It was just like getting bigger and getting bigger and getting bigger and getting bigger. And what happens is most of my students are like, oh, I've been training with you 20 years. And I keep saying, if I can't experience energy anymore, can it ever get any more? It only gets more. It only gets bigger. It only gets wider. It only gets more amplified, because energy is the now, and it is the mother. It's never ending.
Mm-hmm.
So you will always be in turn never exhausted. When you recognize that you are not this physical body, you will be abundant, timeless, endless, limitless, infinite. And so the first red flag for anyone on this journey is that limitation. And that's okay. It's just an identifier. It's like, okay, all right, I'm my end of my day, I'm exhausted, I'm tired, I go put my feet up, I've had a long one. That's the first indication of where you're at, letting your intellect, your psyche commandeer this state. And that's okay. But you're creating a very clear path of your realization. So everyone has to start somewhere, even though it's in the middle of that center point. It all starts with just being aware. As Lao Tzu would put it, there are 5 stages of realization: concept, consciousness, knowing, unconscious knowing, and then being one with all things. And then to hit the 9, which is the highest point of the mother, is within those 5 stages that you then replicate the pulsating effect of the bellows from in and out, contract, expand. So it goes level 6, 7, 8, 9, all being realized as one. And that's where you get that resonance, and you get that visceral feeling that I just shared with you now. It's the now. And so the number 9 is basically the beginning and end of all things, the now, the everything and nothing. And that's why so many people use that representation to manipulate by saying 6 is the representation of the devil. Actually, no, it's just a mirror reflection of the 9, which is the highest point, which if you actually go and wrap your mind around it, what does it take to create human life? Oh, wow. What are the chances of that? The evidence of who you really are, the present moment, is right in front of us. And when you realize that, you go, holy moly, everything is already here. Of course it is. And it's sort of like, I like playing Sherlock Holmes and Elementary, my dear Watson. And I like to play those little moments. And it's another recognized realization of the now, the present moment. Oh, yeah. And this is why within Taoism, we actually have this scepter that we use for ritual and magic. And it comes in the form of a uterus. And that's the center point. The mother, remember the creation, the beginning to end. Do not be twisted. And then you get past that. It's an identifier, right? And so that cycle of things that people go, whoa, holy crap. I don't know why, but that resonated with me so much. It made so much sense. It expanded me just by hearing that. And I'm like, my answer to that is, you're welcome. And so you just get bigger and bigger and bigger on that realization. And like, a lot of these, methods, religions, belief systems, there's a true understanding of the whispers of the universe that brings you to that point, and that nothing is by accident. Everything is in its perfect place at the perfect time for perfection. And when you understand and realize that present moment as perfection, then everything will be perfection, as it should be. Amen to that.
I experienced this. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I think we've had an incredible expression of the now, right now, and this conversation has been amazing. So
Yes.
why don't we speak a little bit about your alchemical processes to help your seekers, the people that gravitate to your messaging and your teachings? What would you use as a method of a starting point for their own journey?
I would love to share. Well, a lot of my approach, like I mentioned, really does come towards meeting people where they are at. Although the interesting game of that is, in order for people to come into my space, there's a certain frequency that they are at already as well. For I operate, as we all do, but consciously I operate from a place of magnetism, intentionality, and precision. And part of my own practice is I attune not just myself, but I attune with who I will be working with, or what the space is where people may be able to find me. And so portals usually will appear in their space. Would be a great example of such a thing. So having a conversation, someone perhaps feels very inspired to come listen to this particular show. They feel the call in them. And part of this is because we have been playing at a resonance level. And so they feel inspired to connect and such. And this is one such way. There are many, many different ways this can take shape. And as people connect with me, usually through I have a website or I have an email or they send me a message, what we usually do is have a conversation. So for those who have felt very inspired to connect with me, they can either get my book. I have two main books. One of them is a book that I call it currently the Flow Book. And it is an attunement. It is an attunement book of 27 different perspectives that came through at a very expanded state of consciousness. And this attunement book is one that is more of a tool. When a person opens the book to a random page, they may hold it, or if it's digital, they may, close their eyes or whatever they do and roll to a random page, and it will arrive at the attunement that is most resonant for them in that given moment. And these attunements I have found are very powerful and very precise. And they were created in a state of expanded consciousness with the collective as the collective. And so in one form or another, they are always made available to those who seek them. And I also invite, if people feel inspired, they can, sign up, have an email, be part of the email newsletter, what have you. But I always say to people, it's always available in many different formats. And when people find me through one of these means, we often have a conversation. So I have usually 15-minute blocks for people to converse with me. And when we have these blocks, I will often start by having people breathe in. I invite them if they so choose. We take 3 breaths simultaneously together. And what I find this does is this helps us synchronize. This helps us intentionally synchronize and be aware in the present moment. It is a deliberate act, and we can do this via Zoom. We can do this in person, wherever it is. But this intentional act helps us be with clarity in the present moment. And in that space, we usually have a very brief conversation. And what will happen during that conversation is whatever a person's primary focus is at that moment, whether they are focusing on seeking on their spiritual wisdom and knowledge, whether they are focusing, connecting to their inner voice, whether they are focusing in a relationship way or a time way. People have also approached me for things having to do with bring their visions to life, whether it's a creative project or a vision. Sometimes it's even a business or a construct that they have in their reality they want to bring forward. But they know that they want to do this not only in a practical way, but they are choosing to build it from the seed of their truest resonance, no longer from the seed of what they think they need to do, or from a place of lack, or from a place of something outside of themselves. I'm going to put that in quotes, but rather to initiate from the core seed of who they are. The way people find my facilitation process is it's a combination of true self-awareness done through a variety of modalities, such as with yourself. I actually have been trained in a number of modalities, spanning from things like being able to guide people into a theta state, or some people can sometimes call it a hypnosis state or a meditative state, in which they can access their own inner awareness with clarity at that moment. Sometimes I work with people on the modalities that they're familiar with. We even brought up things like, oh, there's astrology, there's the I Ching, there is the, as some people call, human design. And while some people find these applications helpful, I can meet them at these places, and then we are able to see where they have patterned, and then we may choose to either keep patterns they find beneficial, or we may move beyond them, should we choose. And in this way, with each person I connect with, we connect in the ways that their own permission slip has provided them a portal or juncture point for them to expand into whatever possibility they choose. And in such a way, my facilitations have sometimes been described as experiencing a profound shift, a quantum leap. For some, they even call it a sober medicine journey, because sometimes it can feel this way when one embodies and experiences such a shift in the consciousness and the frequency, but one that can be maintained. And yet, oftentimes, we are doing this from very practical and empowered steps. Because what will often happen after the 15-minute conversation, should someone choose to proceed in an engagement with me, I host both workshops with smaller groups in which we are all focusing together and we are cultivating a certain state of frequency and beingness that is true to our core while also simultaneously connecting. Or sometimes people will work with me in a more private capacity, in which case we either do such things as build a vision or address a relationship, or perhaps embody a deeper spiritual awareness within themselves. And regardless of what place we go, they always seem to begin, at least at the time of this presentation, at the time of this share, with that initial conversation. And so if it does feel resonant to you, we can include a portal on this channel through the form of a link for those who feel inspired to have that initial conversation. And if it feels resonant, we can also include a link for those who would like the flow book, which may, I believe, be a very valuable and valuable tool for those who want to explore it as well. And from there, well, all resonant things are possible.
I love it. I can see quite clearly that you've had many dips in the etheric plane of consciousness, or just the spirit realm. You've had many past lives as a Taoist in some form or another, alchemist. But it's interesting because you bring up the number 27, which is part of our system of nines, and there are no coincidences. Now, I just finished the transcribing the 2024 version of the Tao Te Ching with Lao Tzu a couple of weeks ago. I published it. But what people don't understand is the Tao Te Ching to a true Taoist seeker is what we call the magical register. So within that transcription, I've revealed, to first time in the world that I've ever seen in human history, the Tao Te Ching, the magical register. And so each verse is an incantation, and
Yes.
each incantation has 81 levels of consciousness. And it also comes with a frequency and a color that is given to the seeker as they embody that. So the second
Yes.
they open it up, they get charged with this incredible embodiment, just as you're experiencing now, that expansive feeling of the now. And so people freak out. They're like, holy crap, this is, and it goes into a little base of confession from Lao Tzu. He talks about his childhood and how he initially was realized as a healer when he broke his ankle in a local river near his small town, or his small little like village. And he pulled himself to the side of the river and healed himself instantly with a thought alone, which then dove him into this whole realization of he became the boy in the village, the boy that helped everyone remember who they are. And so he had people coming from all over, all different provinces, to be healed with this understanding and knowing that he attuned people with, as we speak on, the resonance and people. So all these healings were just ridiculous. And of course, that plunged him into his journey that was sort of like Hollywood sort of manipulated within the history of time as this old decrepit guy that left a few passing thoughts in something they call the Tao Te Ching, which was absolute nonsense from his direct conversation. And that was a transmission directly from the universe. The whispers, as he speaks on, the whispers of the universe from the mother, transcribed as these very words that are in of themselves alive. As you speak on it, you reveal, you turn to any page within the Tao Te Ching. It has, well, I would recommend, if you're embarking on the magical register that I publish, you need to start from the beginning, because you won't even get past the first incantation. It could literally keep you in the present moment for ever in of itself. So it's very, very powerful, but that sort of leads into what people use as a foundation for the Taoist rites that I teach people, which is basically the deep understanding of all the training, all the rituals, everything. Within 48 hours, you go from a zero to a hero, understanding all the shapes, the numbers, the frequencies, and the colors that are associated, because we have 81 different colors that are associated with that transmutation of the mother into this 3D reality. And then the reflection of that is bringing things back to perfection, reflecting the mother, and returning this altered state to perfection. And so it's just very interesting when you share on all these things. You're remembering who you are, my dear friend, and it sounds pretty much like you're right at the center point of where you need to be. So, yeah, very, very profound stuff, let me tell you. So this has been an amazing conversation today.
Yes, it is.
It really has been. And I'm going to have my students, the seekers, anyone that follows me on social media or privately, publicly, and they're going to come and find all your social media offerings, come and find your channel, go deeper into Danielle's basically understanding of the nature of everything as we know it, and embody that teaching and embark on a journey with her on your own self-realization. And my goodness, my dear friend, I'm just very grateful to have created or reunited, and it feels so good. Reuniting a bond that we've had for many lifetimes. And it becomes very evident. And so
Yes.
I want to thank you for sharing your time with us today on the podcast.
A deep, deep honor. I feel the same. It's so good to be here. I feel such a deep resonance with all of us, and I am in such appreciation of all we've co-created, and have so much love for all of us here and now. And I'm looking forward to all the ways we continue to connect and co-create.
Yes.
And
Yes,
what joy.
that will be in turn another invitation to come back on the podcast in the near future, and we can have more conversations like this one. So
I love it.
I want to thank you for sharing your time with us today. I want to thank the universe for bringing you into my life. And I want to thank the audience for sharing their time with us today. And I am your humble servant and seafood, Taoist Master San Qing. And I'll see you on the next one, guys.